All right, so let's take a trip back in time, shall we? Back to the 16th century.
Ooh, I like time travel.
Yeah, right. To a world without cars, trains, or planes, you know. Can you imagine traveling across the country with
Wow.
like 300 carts
Oh my
full of
God.
all your stuff
Wow.
and your bed,
Like everything.
your entire wardrobe? I mean, that's what it was like to
Wow.
travel with Queen Elizabeth I.
It's amazing. And you know what's really interesting to me about these royal progresses
What's
is
that?
they weren't just, getting the queen from point A to point B.
Right.
They were really carefully planned to kind of project this image of power and to, build relationships with people and just shape how people saw the queen.
Yeah, sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with just the massive scale of it all.
Okay.
Queen Elizabeth traveled with a huge entourage.
Uh-huh.
I mean, courtiers and servants, guards, even like a chapel that traveled with them.
A whole chat.
The whole thing, yeah. And all their belongings, clothes, furniture, food,
Yeah.
all had to be transported with them.
300 carts? I can't even fathom that.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
I mean, the planning alone.
Oh, the planning was incredible.
Yeah.
Meticulous. And, there were these advanced teams called harbingers.
Harbingers?
Harbingers, yeah. They would go ahead and scout out locations and make sure that the lodgings were set up and that there was food and all these provisions. They had to, negotiate with the local officials.
So like a 16th century version of like a presidential motorcade?
Kind of, yeah. But with way more pomp and circumstance.
A little bit more.
Yeah. And, these trips could last for weeks or even months.
Wow.
Yeah, the queen would visit tons of different towns and cities along the way.
So these weren't just quick little jaunts from one place to another?
No. There was a lot of ground to cover, literally and figuratively.
Right. Okay. So it wasn't just about travel.
It wasn't just about the travel.
It was also about governing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Elizabeth used these journeys to, connect with her subjects.
Oh, okay.
Hear what their complaints were and actually, dispense justice.
So like a mobile court?
A mobile court, yeah.
Yes.
Bringing the queen directly to the people.
Wow. And so that would let her show off how important she was.
Exactly. And it helped her, kind of reinforce her legitimacy as the queen.
I bet that wasn't cheap, though.
Oh, no.
Who paid for all this?
That is a great question. That brings us to one of the kind of trickier parts of these royal visits.
Oh, boy.
It's called purveyance.
Purveyance. What is that?
So basically, the crown had the right to just demand goods and services from local communities at a set price to support the queen and everyone traveling with her.
So food and lodging, things like that?
Yeah, food, lodging, transportation, labor, you name it.
So the queen basically got to travel on everybody else's dime.
It was kind of like that, but it's a little more complicated because
Okay.
purveyance had been going on for a long time. And to some people, it was actually seen as an honor
Oh, really?
to be able to contribute to the queen's visit.
Okay.
But it could also be, a big burden on those communities.
Especially if the queen stayed a while.
Exactly. Especially if the queen decided to hang out for a while, or if she had a really large entourage.
I can imagine that probably led to some tension.
It could. Yeah, our sources actually show that there were some times when, purveyance led to resentment and even conflict between the communities and the royal court.
So even though the goal of these visits was to kind of make the queen more popular,
Right.
sometimes it actually just caused more problems.
Yeah. Sometimes it backfired. Power, even with good intentions, can have some, unintended consequences.
Definitely. It really makes you think about the economics of the social dynamics of that time.
Yeah, really complex.
So let's talk about those towns that the queen visited.
Yeah.
How did they prepare for a royal visit?
I mean, imagine your whole town getting a makeover.
Wow.
Houses were painted, streets were cleaned,
Okay.
and anyone they thought was, undesirable, like beggars or anyone who might cause trouble, they kind of made them disappear.
Wow. Like staging a house for sale,
A little bit, yeah.
but with much higher stakes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But these preparations weren't just about looks. It was
Okay.
also about, showing the queen and her court
Uh-huh.
how loyal and prosperous they were.
They probably also hoped the queen would do them some favors.
Oh, absolutely. Hosting the queen, even with all the costs and, everything that came with it,
Yeah.
it could really be seen as an investment,
Okay.
a way to gain some prestige, some
So-
influence, and maybe get on the Queen's good side.
So it sounds like these trips weren't just about the Queen.
Right.
They were about everybody she interacted with along the way.
Yeah, it's all about the people hosting her and the towns she visited and just the whole web of relationships there.
It really gives you a look into how Elizabethan society worked.
Exactly. You can see everything from the royal court
Yeah.
to just everyday people.
And I feel like we've just barely scratched the surface here.
Oh, we've only just begun.
Let's take a minute to recap what we've talked about.
Okay, so we talked about the challenges of moving an entire court across the country and about the whole system of purveyance to support these trips and the incredible preparations towns went through to get ready for the Queen.
Yeah, we also started talking about the political reasons for the progresses.
Yeah, you know how they were used to show off the Queen's power
Right.
and make her authority stronger and how she connected with the people?
And all the complicated relationships between the Queen and the court and the people they visited.
Yeah, there was so much opportunity there,
Yeah.
but also a lot of tension.
Definitely.
It's clear that these progresses were more than just, fancy trips.
They were like a little snapshot of Elizabethan England.
Yeah, they really were. You can
Yeah.
see the culture and the politics and just how society worked back then.
Fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's...
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
I'm ready for more.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm starting to get a feel for the whole, logistics of these progresses.
Right.
But why did Queen Elizabeth even do these things? They
Yeah.
sound so elaborate and expensive.
Right. I mean, on the surface, you might think it was about, moving the court around and avoiding, the plague,
Sure, yeah.
outbreaks of disease. But the main reasons were much more
Strategic.
strategic. Yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
So Elizabeth really understood, the importance of being seen
Mhm.
and being present with her subjects. It wasn't just about showing off.
Okay.
It was about power.
Okay, so like a 16th century PR campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But instead of social media, it was, horseback riding
And fancy clothes.
and fancy clothes, yes.
So these progresses were a way for her to really show off her authority.
Exactly, to make sure everybody knew who was in charge.
Uh-huh.
She could also use these trips to enforce religious conformity.
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, don't forget, this was a really tumultuous time for religion.
It was.
Yeah. And Elizabeth also used the progresses to show off England's military might.
I never thought about that. A royal progress as a military display.
Well, think of it as a carefully choreographed show of force.
Okay.
For example, in some towns like Bristol and Portsmouth,
Yeah.
they would stage these elaborate mock battles.
What?
Yeah, with cannons and archers and everything, just to impress everyone.
To impress and maybe intimidate a little bit?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. Elizabeth might not have led armies into battle herself,
Right.
but she definitely knew how to project an image of strength.
She did. And, it's interesting to think about all of this.
Yeah.
She's doing all this in a world that was dominated by men.
Right, exactly. Elizabeth used these progresses to show that she was a powerful woman.
Yeah.
To challenge those traditional ideas about female leadership.
So she was making a statement.
A big statement, like, hey, this
Wow.
queen is not to be messed with.
Yeah. Definitely not. So what about the people hosting her? Were they happy about all this?
Well, our sources show kind of both sides of the coin.
Okay.
For courtiers and for the towns, it was a chance to, get in good with the queen, to get access to power,
Yeah.
and maybe even get some of their local problems solved.
So it was a gamble?
Kind of,
Yeah.
spend a ton of money on hosting the queen and hope for the best.
Hope she does you a favor.
Exactly. And sometimes it really paid off.
Okay, like who?
Well, there's the story of Sir John Thynne.
Okay, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was
right.
in the middle of building Longleat House.
That's a huge house.
I know, right? And guess what? Right when he was trying to get it all done, Elizabeth decided to visit.
Oh, I bet he was stressed.
Oh, yeah. Construction delays.
Yeah.
Trying to decorate everything at the last minute.
Make sure there's enough food.
Oh, and enough food for everyone. It was a lot.
And he couldn't say no to the queen.
No, he couldn't. He actually tried to get out of it.
He did.
Yeah. He said that, everyone in his household had sweating sickness.
Sweating sickness.
Yeah. But the queen was determined.
Oh, boy.
She was coming. So Sir John knew what he had to do.
What did he do?
He went all out. He gave the queen the most lavish gifts,
Like what?
including a jewel so fancy that Elizabeth supposedly said no earl in England had ever given her anything like it.
Wow. Talk about making an impression.
He did. So yeah, you can really see how these visits were a big deal for people who wanted to climb the social ladder.
Oh, yeah. Or just get on the Queen's good side.
Exactly. It was like a chance to get close to her and maybe even influence her decisions.
But I know you said earlier that not everyone loved these progresses.
Right, right. Not everyone was thrilled about it.
Why is that?
Well, some people thought they were too extravagant
Yeah.
and wasteful, especially with all the money spent on purveyance.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And all the fancy gifts.
Yeah.
You can imagine the people who had to, like, provide for the queen and her entourage
Right.
probably weren't too happy about it.
Yeah, and the other courtiers who felt like they had to compete.
Yeah, they had to keep up with each other.
Yeah.
These increasingly extravagant displays.
And don't forget about the danger.
Right. Travel back then was not a walk in the park.
It was not.
Highwaymen, disease outbreaks, you name it.
So not exactly a relaxing vacation.
No, not at all. And then there was the constant threat of people wanting to overthrow the queen,
Right.
you know, plotting against her.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate how easy we have it today.
It does. Paved roads, GPS, no highwaymen.
Exactly. So yeah, these trips, they were a big deal. They were risky.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth knew she had to do them.
To hold on to power.
To hold on to power and to connect with her people.
Right. So let's change gears a bit.
Okay.
And talk about some of the hidden stuff that we've learned.
Yeah, the secret histories.
The juicy stuff.
Exactly. So, for example,
Yeah.
did you hear about the recent discovery of hidden passages in William Camden's annals?
Hidden passages.
Yeah. Like in the book.
Wait, the annals. That was Elizabeth's official biography, right?
Yeah. And these passages were hidden for centuries.
That sounds like a mystery novel. What did they say?
Well, they basically had all these censored details
Oh, wow.
that were probably added after James I became king,
Okay.
and they paint Elizabeth in a less than favorable light.
So they were trying to rewrite history.
It seems that way. It's a good reminder that history is often told from the winner's perspective,
Right.
and that even official accounts
Yeah.
can be biased.
Definitely. I love those kind of history mysteries.
Too. Makes you really think about what you're reading
Yeah.
and to look for different perspectives.
Okay, so what other hidden stories did we find?
Well, we learned about William Byrd.
Okay.
He was a composer, super talented,
All right.
and he was a Catholic.
Oh, wow. During Elizabeth's reign.
I know, right?
That
A Catholic in a Protestant court.
must have been tricky.
It was. But Byrd was really good at balancing his personal beliefs
Yeah.
with his position in the court.
So how did he do that?
Well, his music was so diverse.
Okay.
He wrote everything from these huge pieces for cathedrals
Yeah.
to these intimate Catholic masses that he composed in secret.
Wow. So he was living a double life.
In a way, yeah. It's pretty amazing how he was able to express himself
Yeah.
and create this incredible music,
Yeah.
even in a system that was so restrictive
Dangerous.
and dangerous, yeah. So yeah, Byrd's story is a really interesting example of how people
Yeah.
found ways to navigate those tricky waters of Elizabethan England.
It really makes you think.
It does, doesn't it?
It's amazing how these progresses weren't just limited to England.
Yeah.
Our sources talk about this alliance between Elizabeth and the Sultan of Morocco.
Right, Sultan Ahmed al-Mansur.
Ahmed al-Mansur. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it really shows how connected the world was becoming even back then.
Yeah.
And it was all about trade,
Okay.
especially sugar. Sugar was like the hot commodity back then.
Wait, Morocco had a big sugar industry.
Oh yeah, it was booming. And Elizabeth saw an opportunity.
Makes sense. Sugar was like liquid gold.
Exactly. She wanted to make sure England had a good supply.
So it was just a trade deal.
Well, it was a little more complicated than that.
Okay. What else is going on?
England was also giving Morocco weapons and ammunition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, probably to help the Sultan conquer the Songhai Empire.
So the sugar trade wasn't so sweet after all?
No, not really. It makes you think about, you know, England's role in the slave trade.
Because the sugar production in Morocco probably used slave labor.
Right. It's a reminder that even simple transactions can have these really big consequences.
Yeah, and that history is all connected.
It is. It's important to look at the whole picture.
Definitely. So there was this one story
Yeah.
about David Ingram,
Oh, yeah, the sailor.
who supposedly crossed North America way before the famous explorers.
Right. His story was kind of dismissed as a tall tale for a long time.
Yeah, I remember learning that he was making it all up.
Yeah, but now there's all this new research.
Oh.
Yeah. They've been looking at old maps and records,
Okay.
and it looks like his journey might have actually happened.
Wow. So he might have seen things that no European had ever seen before.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it makes you wonder how many other stories are out there.
Hidden in the archives, just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. It's a good reminder to always be curious.
Yeah.
And to question what we think we know.
And to keep an open mind.
Yes. Because history is always changing.
It is. It's really cool to think about all the work that historians do
Yeah.
to put these stories together.
Yeah, they're like detectives.
They are.
They give a voice to people we might have forgotten about.
It's important work.
It is. So we've learned so much about royal progresses.
We have.
You know, they were designed to strengthen the Queen's power and to connect with the people.
And they really give us a glimpse into what Elizabethan England was like.
Yeah. We've seen the logistics and the politics and all the cultural stuff.
And those hidden stories that challenge what we thought we knew.
Exactly. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And, we've seen how ambitious Elizabeth was.
Oh, absolutely.
She really knew how to use her image to her advantage.
She did. She was a master of spectacle.
And she had to be really smart.
Yeah.
To navigate a world ruled by men.
She definitely left her mark on history.
She did.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into royal progresses, I think it's clear that these weren't just fancy trips.
Right.
They were a way for Elizabeth to really connect with her people.
Yeah, and they tell us so much about her reign.
They do. So if you enjoyed this deep dive,
Yeah.
be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive.
Yes, we have so many more fascinating explorations of history and culture coming up.
We do. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.